AI is where the future is and where you ought to be. To get to the top, you'd need more than
this grid to 2 by 2. This way it's a bit larger. And under this grid, and I'm just going to store it in the base folder here. So hit select folder. Review of how that would work. If you want to learn more about using tile maps in Unity, we have a tutorial dedicated to that. So definitely check that out. So for now, I'm just going to take these two objects and remove them. And instead, I'm going to right click in our scene and I'm going to go to the object and create a new tile map. This creates an object in our scene called the cell size of this grid to 2 by 2. This way it's a bit larger. And under this grid, we have the tile map. We can also go and open up the tile set window. So we'll go window, 2D, and select the tile palette. Let's dock this to the side of our scene view. And the tile palette is basically just a window where we add all of our tiles and then we can select between them in order to paint them into our scene. So I'm going to create a new palette here. Let's just name it something like grass platform palette. I'm going to hit create and I'm just going to store it in the base folder here. So hit select folder. And now we can simply drag sprites in here in order to add them
Welcome students, this is the Learning How to Draw class. If your schedule says something different, you're in the wrong place. Okay, a lot of people are in the wrong place today. Well, for the rest of you, today we are taking the first steps in an amazing journey to become artists. Your imaginations will shape the world, move millions, ignite the hearts of... Yes, do you have a question?
Who are you?
I am your art teacher, Mr. Brad.
And what's that sound?
The music? That's my theme song. I have a theme song.
And you're a professional artist?
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel.
So no.
I can teach. We have a lot to cover, and today we're going to be starting with the basics of drawing. We're going to be going over lines and shapes and everything you're going to need as a foundation to move forward and become an artist. So I'm going to go over how this class works. If you're working from home, follow along and feel free to pause this video at any time to get your materials ready, or if you just need a little more time with any of the assignments we cover. Or you could just watch the whole videos and then look at the chapter markers down below on the video to go back to certain sections if you want to do the assignments. Every class, we're going to cover a different topic that will give you a good starting place for learning how to draw. We'll go over the materials you need, and then we'll have lessons where you can learn an important skill or two, and I'll leave you with homework and even link to other free resources available here on the YouTubes.
What if we don't want to do the homework?
Then you will only be hurting yourself, young man. Let's go over to the supply cupboard and see what we're gonna need today. For this lesson, all you need is a pencil and paper.
That's it?
Well, you could draw on the wall or something if you don't have paper.
I want to use my iPad.
That's fine. Draw with anything. I have these cool pens. Use those too.
I also have the Bingo HD 360 Pro, the most advanced drawing tablet ever made.
Oh, son. Should have watched my review before buying that.
Why is it smoking?
Oh no.
Important fact. Don't get too hung up on what tools you have. Whatever you want to draw with is fine. And if all you have is pencil and paper, great, because that's all you need to do any of these lessons.
Looks like we're ready to start. To be an artist, you have to start looking at the world like an artist. Everything you will be drawing is made up of simple shapes. We can boil it down to just three: boxes, circles, and
Jestem w kropce. Mam puścić je na dwór, by bawiły się w tym smogu.
triangles. Just look around this room. Circle, box, triangle, circle, box, triangle. Some items are made up of multiple shapes. And this is what I mean by looking around at the world like you're an artist. You should start breaking down things that you see every day around you into these shapes and ask yourself, how would I draw that using basic shapes? You've probably drawn all these shapes before, but since this is our first lesson, we're going to be starting with the very basics. These three shapes are all made of lines, and drawing lines seems pretty easy, but what about drawing a very straight and very long line? Let's go to assignment 1. The first thing I want you to do is make a bunch of dots down one side of your paper and a bunch of dots down the other side of your paper. Now what we're going to be doing here is pretty simple. We're going to be connecting those dots with a line. The key here is to keep your wrist straight and draw with your arm. If you draw with your wrist, you're far more likely to get a curved line. But starting on one side of the page and moving your whole arm is going to give you a much straighter line. Sometimes practicing your stroke before you actually place the pencil tip down on the paper can help you make these lines even better. Yes, you with the question.
What about those shapes?
These lines are gonna make up our shapes. Any kind of square that you wanna draw is just a bunch of points that we're connecting with lines. In fact, that's assignment 2. Feel free to pause the video here if you wanna finish assignment 1 first. For this assignment, you're gonna need 3 pieces of paper. Paper 1, I want you to fill this with squares. Treat every line like it's important. Start putting down your dots and practicing each line individually. Make it as straight as you can. Try to start on a dot and stop on a dot. Try not to overshoot too much. This is gonna take some practice, not to overshoot or undershoot, but this is the kind of practice that helps you develop control. Piece of paper number 2 is for triangles. We're going to be doing the dot thing again, except this time we're only gonna be using 3 dots to draw those careful lines. And if you don't feel comfortable drawing a line, like it's just at a weird angle, feel free to turn your paper. That's not cheating, that's just drawing. And page 3 is for circles. Now circles are a little bit different because you're not using straight lines. when practicing your circles, try drawing them in the air over your paper first. Get familiar with making that circular motion with your entire arm and not just your wrist. Like this? No, not exactly. I was thinking more of your hand just hovering above the paper. With the other lines, I wanted you to practice controlling starting and stopping, but with these circles, I want you to overshoot. Feel free to go over that circle once or twice. That's just good practice. And when we start to do ellipses, which are just circles that are a little bit narrower, that's going to come in handy. So to recap this assignment, 3 pages, 1 of squares, 1 of triangles, and 1 of circles. Can I have a volunteer? You. Jimmy.
Could I use the bathroom?
No, I need you to stand up here so I can show the class how everything is made of basic shapes.
Okay.
We can break down Jimmy into these basic core shapes: squares, circles, and triangles. Then once we have that structure down, we can start to add our detail.
I'm so basic.
We can fix that. Cube, circle, circle, cube, triangle, cube, cube, circle,
Dude.
circle,
That's a
triangle,
lot of
cube,
shapes.
Cube, circle, triangle.
This
triangle,
is getting
circle,
heavy.
Cube. When you see a complex drawing, it's not the shapes that are more complex, it's just the number of them and how they're positioned.
How are these staying on?
I don't really know. Not again.
Wait. This doesn't make sense. You said that these shapes make up everything we draw. But look at the box filled with half-eaten Pop-Tarts over there. That's not made of these 3 shapes.
Oh my god.
We've been lied to.
I don't like this anymore. Hold on. I can explain. I was keeping it simple for our first exercise. Now that we have those basics, we can move forward. What these 3 shapes represent are 2-dimensional versions of cubes and spheres and cones.
That
I
makes
see.
sense.
Still don't like him. I'm gonna add another shape in here. Cylinders, just for fun. Half sphere, half cube, all shape.
How you doing?
Our first group of shapes were 2-dimensional, but many of the things you're going to be drawing in life are going to be 3-dimensional. So as we look at more complicated shapes, like that half-eaten box of Pop-Tarts in the corner, where are the Pop-Tarts?
Mr. Brad, I don't feel so good. Can I go to the bathroom?
Yes, just hurry. When we look at the empty box in the corner, it's a cube. If we want to draw a very simple cube, we can draw a square, and then draw angled lines coming off these 3 corners. Then we can close those angled lines with 2 more lines, and boom, you've taken that square and you've turned it into a cube. Granted, that is a pretty boring cube, but we could draw it other ways too. For example, we could start by making a diamond shape. This diamond shape is going to be the top of our cube, and then we're just going to draw 3 lines going straight down that are all about equal length. Then we'll close them up at the bottom, and now we have a cube from a different angle. This is hard. Yeah, if you've never done this before, it could seem complicated, but we're going to be going over these shapes again and again. Spheres are just circles, and like the cubes, they exist in a 3D space as well. To draw them, I like to find the center line. So if we're looking at this circle straight on, these are just going to be straight lines on our circle. But if we tilt the circle a little bit, these lines are going to become more rounded. Now, when you draw your circles, what I want you to do is to draw the full ellipse, even the part that you're not going to see behind the circle, just like this. And then for that center line, I want to do that again. If you want to make it look pretty, you can always erase the back half of those lines. But the wider you make that ellipse, the more of the side or the front of that circle you're going to see. Now the cone is pretty easy. It's a triangle, but instead of a flat line along the bottom, we're going to add an ellipse here. The taller we make that ellipse, the more it's going to look like you're looking down at your cube. And you're going to want to adjust the top of that cone to accommodate for the size of the ellipse that you've put under it. Now the cylinder is similar. It's a box with an ellipse at the top and an ellipse at the bottom. The bigger you make your ellipse, the more of the top or the bottom of that cylinder you're going to see. And these are the 4 shapes that make up the core of everything that you're going to be drawing.
There's the bell.
I've got some homework for y'all. I want you to practice these cubes, spheres, cones, and cylinders. I want you to take your pencil and paper and draw 4 of each, and you can turn it in tomorrow morning when you get to class.
Mr. Cowboy, there is still a Pop-Tart at the bottom of the box, and I don't think you can draw that with one of your fancy 3D shapes.
Oh my god!
We've been lied to.
Hit subscribe if you want to.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
Welcome students, in today's class we are going to learn how to draw anything. You folks like my new microphone? It's got the pedals with the effects on it. It's part of my new awesome DJ rig.
It's kind of echoey.
It's alright. I'm a pretty well-known DJ around here. DJ Cowboy? Anyone? Very popular. Okay, well in our last class we talked about how to draw basic lines and shapes and then how to take those and see them as 3D objects like cubes, spheres, cylinders, and cones. Oops, my bad. Didn't mean to step on that pedal this time.
I remember that. You said we could draw anything with those shapes, but you couldn't draw the half-eaten Pop-Tart in the corner.
I didn't say that. We just ran out of time. In art, there's something called construction. The reason we practice drawing those shapes is because we are going to use them over and over again. You're going to be so tired of drawing cubes when I'm done with you. You're going to be dying to draw a sphere. Where's that Pop-Tart? Let's take a look at that thing. What shape does this most look like? It looks like a cube, but obviously it's a very flat cube. So let's shrink that cube down to be flatter. The bites that are taken out of it are like cylinders. We, of course, don't see those cylinders, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut out those round shapes from our main cube and still see that three-dimensionality. And then we can add some of the details, like the frosting on top and some of the delicious oozing strawberry syrup on the inside.
How about that bookshelf?
This is easy because mostly it's just cubes, but it's a lot of them. The shelf itself is a cube, but it's a hollow cube. So what we're going to draw is we're going to draw those lines inside of it. That way it shows that it has some weight and some depth to it. Now this also has a shelf in the middle. What is that shelf? It's just another flat cube that slides right into the middle. And the books, those are pretty much just cubes. I mean, we cut a little bit out of them to show that they have pages. Each one of these books is a different height and a different width, and that gives them some variation while they're sitting on the shelf.
But what about my ice cream bar?
All right, well that is a cube, but it's not a perfect cube. Obviously, that's rounded on top. So what do we use for the rounded part? We use a cylinder. In fact, we can cut that cylinder in half, jam it into the cube, and we have the rough shape of your ice cream bar. There's also the stick that goes in the bottom. Obviously, this is just another one of those short, flat, stretched out cubes. And like your ice cream bar, it's rounded at the ends. What are those? Those are just half cylinders. Now, of course, when we put it in place, we can't see the whole stick because it's inside of your ice cream bar. Let's take this one to the next level. Let's add some fancy stripes. Now, when we do add these stripes, these are going to follow the path of the cube. Even though these stripes don't have straight lines, they have a wavy edge to them, that wavy edge is still following the shape of our cube. And if we want to get super mega ultra fancy, we could make our ice cream look transparent and have part of that stick showing through the middle of it.
Wow.
I know, it's pretty impressive.
Okay, but that guitar is way more complex.
Ooh, yeah, well, Mr. Brad, come to the principal's office.
Oh, you're in trouble.
You don't know that. Maybe he wants to give me a raise. I hope. Look, I'll be back, but while I'm gone, I've got an assignment for all of you. Assignment number 1, I want you to go outside and look at the world around you. I want you to start looking at the world like artists. I want you to find objects and think about how you would make those objects and construct those objects using the shapes we've talked about today.
Pro tip, this can be hard to do if you're a beginner, especially if you're not used to drawing in perspective.
We'll be covering that in the future episode. Hit subscribe.
A great way to get a feel for drawing is to find a picture on the internet and try drawing lines over the picture you see. If you have a phone or tablet, you can take your paper and place it right over. It acts like a mini light box so you can see the photo underneath. If you're having a hard time drawing an object, starting with this technique is a good way to visualize how it's constructed before you try drawing it yourself. Also, when you're starting out, it's good to stick to man-made objects. Animals in nature do follow many of the same rules, but organic shapes are a little trickier.
We'll be covering that in the future too. Ring that bell. It's hot out here.
See anything good to draw?
I'm trying to figure out how to do the slide. I guess that's boxes and cylinders. What would that cowboy guy say? Sometimes it's easier to think of objects from the side first. The slide itself is another flat cube. The sides, those are also cubes. So let's take a look at this from the side. Pretty boring, but we can see that the slide is tilted over. The thing is on an angle. The poles going up and down that form the ladder are also on a slight angle. Those poles would be cylinders. And then the steps that are attached to those cylinders, those are just more cubes. The tricky part here is the top. Sometimes these shapes bend. That's where our slide handle comes in. This is why I sometimes like to look at things from different angles, even if you're drawing them in 3D. Looking at them from the top or the side can help you figure out, hey, this is just a simple shape that another shape is following. So then when we step over and start drawing this in 3 dimensions, we can practice drawing our boxes and our cylinders on an angle. If you're new, I understand this is tricky, but this is a good thing to practice. And if you are having trouble, feel free to just sketch out the basic lines and don't think so much about the shapes underneath it first and add the shapes later. It can often help you break this down into its basic shapes. Mr. Principal, you wanted to see me?
Yeah, come in here. I hear you're a DJ. I'm throwing a party. You must go to a lot of parties.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty well known across the Tri-County area for my DJ skills. What kind of music are you looking for?
Oh, no, not that. I just booked DJ Tanner.
What? My nemesis?
I just wanted your opinion on the food.
Right, the food.
The tire swing is super easy, at least the tire part. That's a cylinder with a cylinder cut out of the middle. I can't get the chains right.
Maybe I can help.
Whoa, you're DJ Tanner.
Wow!
Yep, that's me. Just booked a huge gig. I'm also a part-time